Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about that random Xbox showcase. For those who don't know, and I wouldn't blame you if you missed it, earlier this week, Xbox announced a new partner preview showcase. And I wanted to talk about this for two reasons. Number one was what content was shown, how was it worth the time, did I like what was there, all that fun stuff we usually do with any showcase video. But also, why this needed to exist in all fairness, because this does feel like, while the format was great, it does feel like a return to old Xbox where they just did really random showcases. Like, if you need the too long get and read, there is good stuff here, especially the opening trailer. Gotta be honest, I love what I'm seeing here, we'll talk about it. But when it comes to the showcase style, where I know we usually have, for example, a Tokyo Game Show showcase, we know Xbox is gonna be at Gamescom, they have these certain beats throughout the year you can lock in, but then you'll get something like the gameplay third-party showcase from 2020, which was the most random thing that famously did not live up to the hype at all. And then you get something like this, where when you've established developer direct, interjecting these random new formats, I don't think communicates to fans at all that you know how to showcase these games. And I'm not trying to be nitpicky, I'm not trying to be hateful, I'm just saying what I see here, which is I think Xbox needs a consistent format, a consistent show. And I like that they're investing in their partners here, something I'll get into, especially with JRPG developers. Really like what I'm seeing there. But I feel like this was almost out of place. And I don't understand, when I finished it, I went, okay, there's some good stuff here, why it needed to exist, especially with the Game Awards looming, a potential developer direct before the end of the year, or at least at the top of the new year with Activision Blizzard fully in the fold. There's much more to get into content-wise, but I just want to let you all know how I was feeling about the showcase itself. Was it bad? No, not at all. It just felt very out of nowhere and almost purposeless, given that there weren't many announcements of any caliber, by the way. I'm not looking for gangbuster announcements. We know if Xbox feels they've got something, they really get loud and proud about it. That's been their mojo all year. But again, I just thought this was a really random one. I'm not going to complain. There was some good stuff here, but just for feedback, because I know many people from Xbox happen to watch my videos, that I feel like we got to keep the showcase format and delivery and messaging a lot more consistent and not interjecting all these different ones here and there. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's talk about what was shown at the Xbox Partner Preview now. Opening up the show was Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Now, for those who don't know, I was not crazy about Like a Dragon because it reminded me of really old JRPGs, which I know was part of the design. Like, you have Ichiban, who's a huge Dragon Quest fan. It was supposed to feel like an old RPG with a lot of modern elements there, but it's grindy nature all over the place, and I could not stand that final boss fight. You can tell me skill issue, I don't care. That final boss ticked me off with his one-hit kills. It just checked every box of what I don't like about old JRPGs, and to find it in a modern game was infuriating. However, it does have a fun spirit to it. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, I gotta keep it real. This new trailer where we go to Doku Doku Island and you see Animal Crossing crossing over with JRPG goodness, this looks awesome. Yakuza's always nailed these really random mini games, and to see them go into like an island builder, that is such a stroke of brilliance, leaning into the brand new setting. I am genuinely so excited about this now because of this little mode here. You know, we've seen the cabaret clubs and whatnot in the older Yakuza games. We've seen the really addicting RTS game, and I think it was Kiwami 2. Like, we've seen some really cool mini games out of this team. But this one, I mean, I was never really big into Animal Crossing. I remember it was kind of like a low-key comfort game around the time the pandemic started, but then I just phased out of it. I was like, all right, I'm done with this, because I don't just like to build and look. I'm like, I want to interact. I want to build relationships, and it looks like you can do that here, and you can also fight here. I mean, it just looks like a good time. You're doing bug catching. I mean, it's straight up Animal Crossing JRPG. Like, it is really, really awesome. So I love that Yakuza, in its very hardcore JRPG nature, is going to be folding in a life sim type of approach. I just hope personally that they balance the combat a lot better, but we'll see how that all goes. The next game that was shown off, this was an announcement. It was Ekko Will Not Die, which had great looking movement and reminded me a lot of Jet Set in a weird way. I think it may have just been the art style. The soundtrack seemed pretty good. The movement, though, was really what took me away there. Seeing you go from one end of the room to the other, very elegant. Looked kind of indie though, but still something I'll mark down as, all right, we'll see how this one turns out, but not like a hype announcement. And that's a consistent thing for those who skipped out on this. It's a consistent thing throughout this entire showcase. There's no real hype moment. Maybe the opening trailer was hype in its own way, but no hype, shocker announcements or anything like that. After Ikaro, we got Still Wakes the Deep. I saw a lot of websites reporting that this was a brand new addition to Day 1 Game Pass, which I think shows that people aren't paying attention. This was announced earlier this year in a reveal trailer at the Xbox showcase over the summer, and that was a Day 1 Game Pass game then. This was just a gameplay reveal for it. It was one of those Outlast, first-person, claustrophobic horror experiences, and that's not the worst thing in the world, but it doesn't ring any type of excitement with me, but I know many people like that more immersive stuff. To me, Scorn originally was more appealing because it was a very different art style. It was just so weird. It was appealing. This seems like more traditional first-person vulnerable horror game design. So we'll see how it turns out, but Day 1 Game Pass certainly means that it's going to be worth at least a look for me. Afterwards, we got to look at RoboCop Rogue City. This releases November 2nd. I gotta confess something. I don't know if I'm just running off with hot takes lately. I apologize, but I try to be honest with my audience. I have never seen RoboCop, though. I've never seen it. Like, I don't know. I told you in an older video when we were talking about Fallout and the cast that was there, it's like the list of movies I have not seen is embarrassing. Like, I have not seen RoboCop. This is why I said I want to open up a channel one of these days and just watch these old movies and react to them and just review them nowadays as someone who knows nothing about it. But the game, the presentation looks really good. The gameplay, I don't know, something just seems off here. Like, it seems like the marketing team's doing a lot of heavy lifting. It doesn't look bad, and I wouldn't even say it looks mid, but it looks like something's off here. Like the cutscenes, RoboCop talking, the voice performances, that feels really well presented, well done. But then I look at the gameplay and I think this seems different. I don't know if it's the drop in fidelity from the cutscene to the gameplay, but something seems janky here almost. So we'll see how it plays out, but it's coming out quite soon, and hopefully it delivers, especially for RoboCop fans who have wanted a game like this, a nice first-person shooter. It looks pretty cool nonetheless. Afterwards, we got to look at Dungeons of Hinterberg. This was another Day 1 Game Pass game shown off here. This was also one revealed during the summer showcase as a Day 1 Game Pass game. This is coming out spring 2024. Here's the big takeaway for me with this game. I always liked the art style, but when they first revealed it a few months ago, the frame rate was really bad. They didn't show as much chaotic action here, but it definitely looks a lot more stable, and it seems there's more life sim stuff. A lot of life sim elements in these games lately, man. Persona's making waves, I'm telling you what. I like that they're doing that. You're building relationships with people around you and going into these dungeons and fighting. I hope that the combat remains stable in the frame rate department, so we'll see. Afterwards, we got a new reveal in Spirit of the North 2. This seems like a fan favorite because when you look at critic scores for the first game, a lot of people were not crazy about it, reviewed pretty low across the board. But when you look at like user reviews on Metacritic, you'll see it did decent, right? So there is something here that people really like that the critics didn't like, which can oftentimes mean that it's worth a playthrough. Let's be honest. So that got a sequel announcement, which was pretty cool to see a game that didn't do gangbusters getting a second chance. We'll see what they do to evolve there. But this looks like a nice, cozy, feelsy game, so I'm about what they're doing here. Afterwards, we got a in-engine look at Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. It's the opening area of the game. I don't know what they're doing in the terms of gameplay adjustments because it looked like the same kind of complicated aiming system that you'd find in Metal Gear Solid 3 where Snake went prone and then the way he pulled out the gun and then aimed. Something seemed different there as they went from third to first person, which I, as someone who really likes Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, 2 being my favorite, I feel like we had to make the transition from third to first person gameplay a little more elegant. So I respect that it looks like they're keeping the very, very original approach here. We'll just see how the controls feel, because I think ultimately the camera transition was never a problem. It's always about those controls. What I will point out here, though, is this is where I started to recognize, okay, we're getting a lot of Japanese companies showing up here. Xbox is really building a lot of marketing power around Sega, especially opening the showcase with Sega with Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is awesome. Where you have Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake, a game that's gonna sell stupid well just based off nostalgia. This game could be awful and it's going to sell well, in my opinion. Getting its first in-engine look, these aren't, you know, big deals, but this shows that a lot of these Japanese companies are warming up to Xbox, or at least the money they're offering, which to us as consumers is, you know, no difference there. I just hope it leads to more great games, more Game Pass Day 1 games, maybe an exclusive here or there in a really special partnership, and Xbox really investing heavily in Japan, which it looks like they continue to do here. Afterwards, we got Manor Lords, which is heading to PC Game Pass next April, with a console release coming later. So this looked pretty interesting to me. A lot of city building here, which I always tell this story about Civilization 5. I was playing it in college, and I remember I did a full campaign in one day. It was an 18-hour session, and I blinked and it was all gone. And as someone who had ample free time back then with Civilization, I went, yeah, I'm uninstalling this game. I am never doing that again. So these types of games always terrify me a little bit, but this one looks pretty cool. So that'll be in Game Pass on PC in April. You can check that out there, or on console. I imagine the console release will also be in Game Pass. Afterwards, we got to look at the finals again, which is getting an open beta on Xbox this week, going from the 26th of October to November 5th. This one I'm very interested in. It takes a lot for a first-person shooter to really grab me nowadays, to tell you the truth, because I feel like they just are on such short shelf lives nowadays if you're not Call of Duty, if you're not Battlefield. And I feel like oftentimes we're left waiting for a bounce back, or it's a battle royale, which I'm over. So I've really lost my infatuation with first-person shooters, which I know a lot of people know me as the RPG guy, but like growing up all the way through high school up until college, like that was my main thing. Like if I wasn't playing an RPG, I was playing a first-person shooter, and to kind of lose my love of that stinks, because then I see something like the finals and I remember like, oh yeah, this is why I dig it, because I loved games like Battlefield 3, Battlefield Bad Company 2, that games that had some weight and heft to the weapons when you moved around, and I could see that here in the finals because I know some of the original designers of those Battlefield games were making their way to this team to work on the finals, and you could just see it all over the place. But it still has like abilities and teamwork, but what's cool is it's completely destructible environment. So I'm very interested in the finals. I hope it's not one of those shooters that, as we see time in, time out, like Halo Infinite not being an exception to the rule, show up, high player count, and then you fall off a cliff. I just would love to see, and probably someone will correct me in the comments outside of Call of Duty, one of these shooters come out and sustain a little bit of momentum, sustain post-launch support, not just be the flavor of the week. So the finals, I'm giving myself over to you a little bit. Got some hype for you, so let's hope they deliver. Then we got the Ark Survival Ascended, which launches today on Steam. Pretty much a remake of the original Ark, from its maps to its mechanics and whatnot. So if you're into Ark, this is it for you. This is the big moment, and it's out now. I'm not crazy into Ark. Ark 2 continues to be quiet, but I know that they delayed that until next year, so I imagine Xbox will have more to show on that by that point in time, which could be a pretty wise investment for them. Like, I'm not crazy about Ark, but this is a game that a lot of people love, and so having it in Game Pass, having it exclusive, could be a big deal for them. Last but not least, certainly not least, is Alan Wake 2. We got an extended gameplay preview here and a launch trailer. This one, the review codes are out, and I did not get one, unfortunately, because I've heard really good things and it looks awesome. I think this game looks incredible, though. Like, survival horror has always been low-key one of my favorite genres. I think of Dead Space right away as like, oh my god, just like I feel like I'm home there, man. Just the management of resources, and to see Alan Wake doing that, but keeping like the flashlight mechanic and stuff. I mean, this game looks genuinely terrifying, and I want to play every single second of it. I've heard that this game is really long too, compared to other survival horror games. Like, it can push upwards of 20 hours, which is crazy, because I think the last time we got something like that, maybe you could say like Resident Evil 4. Like, I can't think of many other, and I know Resident Evil 4 can easily get hit with a speed run, so some people tell me to hold it there, but I can't think of many other. The Evil Within 1 was a pretty meaty, like that was 16 hours long. That could be pretty taxing on someone who's not crazy about survival horror, but for me, like, I'm very excited about Alan Wake 2, so I cannot wait for this game to drop to see the reviews for it, and this preview was awesome. But yeah, no big day one Game Pass games here, which I think it was the minimum expectation. Like, oh, you're throwing this together, like, certainly you have an announcement to make, right? Like, maybe it doesn't just have to be a Twitter graphic, like you could put it in this showcase, but no real big deal announcements of any kind, of any caliber. And I don't think anyone was expecting a new exclusive or a first party showing. It was called the partner preview. Like, let's keep our expectations realistic. But I'll have to say I was mildly disappointed to know that there wasn't even like a notable Game Pass announcement of any kind. So that's unfortunate. I think the showcase wasn't bad in terms of the content there. It just felt very random and out of nowhere and out of format for what Xbox was already on the path to doing with their current showcase beats with their developer direct. But I am looking forward to hearing your thoughts down below. What do you make of what's happening here for the Xbox partner preview? Did you like what you saw? Is there anything in particular that excites you? Do you want to see Xbox do this again? Let me know down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the heck out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.